Good morning, Nubians. Good morning. Sunyatta Amen here. I am so glad to be with you here today. I am excited. I'm super honored to have Yasir Rahotep with us today. Yasir is the mastermind behind Kemetic Yoga, which is a system of internal self-development, and it's based on ancient African traditions, specifically from Kemet. So if you've been studying yoga, if you've been doing yoga, if you've been thinking about yoga, this is another approach, right? This approach is ancient, it's wonderful. I have certified under Yasir's program many years ago, probably been 20 years ago. And I have led retreats with Yasir to other countries. We've been all over, right? But Yasir has been doing yoga for, I don't know, the past 50 years, maybe. And yeah, about that. And since you were about 20 years old, and I really am excited to introduce Yasir to this community. Perhaps you've heard of Yasir, pretty famous. He has taught folks from basketball teams and football teams. Like he was doing that kind of stuff, like getting brothers into yoga so they would not get injured before it was cool, right? So all I can say about Yasir is that he's an amazing brother. He also is trains people, has trained over 8,000 folks over the years, had people in his classes. Yasir has a master's degree in social work,
service administration.
Social service administration.
Yep.
And part of your work, Yasir, is that you want people to connect mind, body, and spirit, and you are seeing how effective yoga can be at healing our community. And I'm just super honored that you're here with us today. I want to make sure we get started with you so we don't waste any time getting to know you. Yasir, if I have missed anything in your bio, we're definitely going to talk about it. Like I said, you've been doing yoga for a long time. Talk to us, Yasir, about your journey within that. And I'm so honored you're here to talk to us about when you started being aware of yoga and how that happened.
Well, first of all, I want to say that I'm really happy to be here with my old friends, Sunyatta Amen. And
wait, old friends, or we've been friends a long time?
We have been friends a long time.
I love it.
My friend from back in the day, and who's still my friend to this day, and to hear your voice and see you again is really nice. So I just had to connect with you.
It is our honor to have you. I know the Nubians and the very fact that the community is called Nubians, and you've been to Egypt how many times?
I've been there about 34 times.
Right, leading retreats and having people do yoga at the pyramids. And I've been with you when we've gone to temples and done yoga and done, it's an amazing experience. So I just love that you've shared that with folks over the years, and the idea and energy behind it. You were doing yoga as a young person. How did you even get there?
Well, I was a middle child, so I was always different because nobody ever paid any attention to me.
Oh my God, the middle child.
Yeah, so I had to.
I'm the oldest, so you get no sympathy.
Well, that's why you like my big little sister.
That's true.
Yeah, but so I had to make my own way. So I was always thinking different. I was always interested in things that were in terms of mainstream society. I was always interested in things that were outside of the norm. So I was always interested in ancient Egypt. I was always interested in history and philosophy and science and things like that. I went to Catholic school. I would get in trouble because when they would try to teach me about the Immaculate Conception, I would say, no, you have to have sex. And the egg has to go, the sperm has to go to the egg, and then it starts to multiply. And I was in second grade saying this stuff, and the teacher slapped me, for saying it, So I've always thought on my own. So when I was around 21, when I turned 21, I decided I was going to change my lifestyle. So I became a fruitarian, basically.
Okay. And you met a yoga teacher of note who was an older brother And we want to definitely shout out the ancestors. I don't know if he's still among us, but Asar Hapi was your.
Azar P is still my teacher. I mean, he's still alive. He's still around. He's not an
Oh,
ancestor yet.
excellent, excellent.
And but he became my yoga teacher. But even before then, I was practicing and doing things in a holistic health perspective.
So a fruitarian, meaning you were eating just fruit.
I didn't know. I didn't even know I was a fruitarian because
What were you eating before that?
I was eating I was eating the SAD diet, Standard American Diet. And on my 21st birthday, I decided I wanted to be healthy. So I said, I'm not going to eat meat. And because I didn't know how to prepare any type of vegetarian meal, this was like in the 1970s. So there was no health food stores and vegan restaurants and nothing like that. So right. all I could find to eat was just fruit. I just ate fruits and nuts and raisins and stuff like that, and sunflower.
And you survived. You survived.
Oh yeah, I was feeling good, doing good. I was healthy, and then I was introduced to yoga by a young lady, and
that'll do it. That'll do it.
Yeah, it will do it. It did do it. And so that's how I met my teacher, Dr. Azar P. And I studied with him for about a year or two. And then I went on and I just continued to develop myself and study and practice and travel and develop the system, which we now call Kemetic Yoga.
So Kemetic Yoga, I definitely want to get into that because we may not be aware of yoga's origins. Maybe when people think yoga, do you find that they think India as its genesis?
Well, a lot of people, especially Black folks, a lot of Black folks who've been trained and indoctrinated into Indian yoga, they're more resistant. I get invited by Indians and Hindus to come and speak at their conferences and stuff all the time.
Yeah, I know that to be the case, and I've seen that where they really honor and respect your pathway and the fact that you're studying something that is older, that was the seed that gave the seed for their yoga practice. Can you talk to us about how that even is the case, like Kemetic Yoga, and then how does it go from there into other parts of the world? How old is the system of Kemetic Yoga?
Well, to me, the idea of yoga, meditation, breathing, developing a philosophy of transcendence that allows you to become in tune with nature. This is as old as human beings.
Yes.
And oldest human beings have been in Africa. This is where, even though a lot of people want to debate this and debate that, the vast majority of the evidence indicate that people came out of Africa, and that people in East Africa, in Kemet, in Sudan, in Ethiopia, that they traveled to the east, and they went into India, they went into China, they went into Pakistan, they went into all these different places.
So we're talking about like the Dravidians, yes?
The Dravidians, the original people who created civilization in India were called Dravidians. These was Black people. You can see the remnants of their artifacts and things like that. You can see the remnants of their language, and you can see that their language and everything had an African origin. You can see the connection between Africa. You can look at them. You can look at their statues, and they were.
Why do you think people don't know that, Yasir? Why do you? And look, your studio looks beautiful, by the way. If you're in Chicago, you've got to go visit Yasir. If you're not, make a pilgrimage. Let me tell you something. This brother will change your life. That's your new studio, Yasir?
It's my new studio.
Ooh, lean to the side. Lean to the side. Do a pimp lean. Let me look back. Ooh, wee. That's beautiful. That's absolutely beautiful. I like your flexibility level too, Yasir. You almost went all the way.
I can go both ways.
You got to see Yasir doing headstands, handstands. It's amazing. Why do you feel like people are not aware that yoga has its origins in Kemet, and also, well, let's just start with the Dravidians, actually, because we were there, right? Like, why do we feel like yoga and Indian civilization is not rooted by these Dravidians, these Black folks who came from this Eastern African region? Why is that people don't know that?
Well, because Africa has been given a negative connotation. And so people want to reject anything that's African. Like you see a lot of people now. They say, I'm not a. My ancestors didn't come from Africa. I was already here. You
Oh,
know,
okay.
except there was no such thing as the transatlantic slave trade that brought hundreds of millions of people over here.
Right.
So they want to pick on this one little thing, and they want to exclude themselves from the rest of the
Right.
African diaspora.
Well, the truth is that we circumnavigated the globe long before. So we want to definitely acknowledge that that is the case, that we were everywhere at all times.
We were.
At any place you can point to on the map. The British weren't the first ones to have the sun never sets on the British Empire, right? So we acknowledge that, but we also have to acknowledge the transatlantic slave trade. So what I'm hearing you say is that because of that slave trade and just the way the colonization that Africa itself experienced, that it was beneficial to someone to have Africa just be like, this is a place we don't want to be associated with.
Right. So people do not want to associate themselves with Africa. Black people do not want to associate with Africa because they have been brainwashed by the system of racism, white supremacy to put everything African down.
Right.
So, and also, I've been practicing yoga for close to 50 years. I'm a Black man from the South Side of Chicago.
Hey,
I am a yoga master.
Yes, you are. I mean, in every possible way, folks who are listening to this brother here, between not just when people think yoga, like the bending, the stretching, but I mean the philosophies, the Kemetic origins. You've taken people to Kemet on these retreats more than almost 40 times. You've been all over the world teaching this stuff. Just your mastery is amazing. The fact that the poses are actually named Kemetic imagery, where people may be familiar with the glyphs of these things, and you've done the research. Man, I'm gonna tell you something. You're from the South Side of Chicago, but I feel like the ancestors reached over and touched you, and they were like, "You're gonna be Yoga Bear." That's what I call you. You're gonna be Yoga Bear. And the fact that you teach children, you bring it to jails, you bring it to disadvantaged communities where people really need to learn these techniques. It's not just folks in the Lululemon pants that can afford to come to you. You really do the work, Yasir, and I really honor and appreciate you for that. I've seen it over the years, right? I've known this brother more than 2 decades. Like, this is the real deal when it comes to that. And as we talk about that, Yasir, I want to, it's Women's History Month. I know that you speak very eloquently about the female principle, because when we talk about yoga, sometimes people are like, oh, it's like a feminine thing, or women do yoga, whatever. But the female principle that is unfeared, right? And that was actually pushed forward as this is another way to be. Like, this is a balanced way. We find that where we're living in a society now, especially in America, right? And these British colonies and all these other places, these European places that have been touched, are leaning into this women as the weaker sex, or God as male, like a static male perspective. And I know you speak about that, and I want you to just touch on that, because we're in Women's History Month and we're talking about Kemetic origin. Tell me a bit about that principle, that female principle, and how it was viewed and how you bring it into your practice.
Well, I always celebrate the feminine principle, and yoga itself is an African culture, and Black culture in general is feminine. And by feminine, it doesn't mean like, it means.
I like the hands, Yasir. I like the hands.
It means that you are in tune. Feminine principle means holistic. It means the ability to view the world, to view reality from a holistic perspective, and see all of the interconnectedness between everything. It doesn't mean like a girl. It doesn't mean
right. And there's a difference between feminine and effeminate.
Right.
And I think that sometimes gets lost in a culture where the idea of male inheritance, these things came from that colonization, like male inheritance, male dominance, male forwardness, with that European conquest that started happening throughout the globe, um, how women were really relegated to a different position, and the idea of women as divine was punishable.